Okay, so we've got this uh, pretty hefty stack of reading material here.
Yeah, it's quite a collection.
Dr. Jazant Rathed's list of the 50 most popular and prescribed novels in English literature. I mean,
Hmm.
wow.
It really is something, isn't it? And it's not just a list of, good books or popular books. This list really reflects what's resonated with readers and educators over time. I mean, across generations even. It says something pretty significant about our culture, I think, and the stories that we keep coming back to.
Yeah, absolutely. And so our mission, should we choose to accept it, and we have, is to basically explore this whole literary landscape with you. We're going to pull out some of the most interesting insights, look for patterns, and try to figure out why these particular stories have had such a lasting impact, all without you having to actually read all 50.
Right. Unless you're inspired to, of course.
Exactly. Think of this as like your shortcut to becoming seriously well-informed about some pretty major cultural touchstones.
And it's worth remembering, I think, that prescribed is just as important here as popular. These are the novels that are often seen as essential for understanding not just literature itself, but also the historical, social, and philosophical currents, really,
Mhm.
that have shaped, the English-speaking world.
Right?
And Dr. Rathod's selection covers a huge span of time, which gives us a really broad view.
Exactly. It's not just about, what's trendy right now. These are stories that have proven themselves over and over again. They've
Yeah.
sparked discussion and really shaped perspectives
Yeah.
across, like you said, generations.
Mhm.
So we'll be talking about everything from the appeal of social commentary in Regency England to those stark warnings about potential futures,
Right.
from epic journeys to maybe even a few surprises on the list.
Oh, for sure.
Okay, so should we just dive right in?
Yeah, a good place to start, I think, given its position on the list, is Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. It's consistently at the top of these kinds of lists, which is striking in itself. This is a novel all about courtship and social dynamics in early 19th century England, and it's still so relevant.
What's so brilliant about it, I think, is that it's so much more than just a charming romance. Austen's wit is like razor sharp.
Hmm.
And the way she picks apart societal expectations and class consciousness, I mean, it still feels so relevant today, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
This whole push and pull between Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy, their misunderstandings, and how they eventually figure each other out, it's like a blueprint for so many stories about relationships and the pressures of society.
I totally agree. It sets up this framework for exploring those really timeless concerns like love, social status, and personal growth, all within a very specific historical context. Now, if we
Mhm.
jump forward in time a bit, we find works that tackle more explicit and often darker social issues, like Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird, for example,
Right.
set in the American South during the Jim Crow era. It forces us to confront racial inequality head on and grapple with justice and morality, all through the eyes of a child.
That book has such a lasting impact, doesn't it? Atticus Finch's moral compass, the way prejudice is portrayed, it's such a powerful reminder of the fight for equality and how important empathy really is. Then we have something completely different, Orwell's 1984.
Right. A totally different setting and tone.
A chilling vision of the future where a totalitarian regime controls every aspect of life.
Yeah.
Even thought itself is under constant surveillance.
It's a really stark contrast. But both novels, even though they're set in very different worlds, are fundamentally concerned with power dynamics in society. They show how injustice and oppression can take root, though in very different forms.
Yeah,
And of course, we can't forget Orwell's Animal Farm, which is also on this list.
right.
It uses a simple story about animals to create this really biting allegory about political power and how easily it can become corrupt. A theme that sadly feels very relevant today across different political systems.
Yeah, no kidding. It's interesting how all these different types of social commentary, they really endure. And this list also offers a pretty interesting look at the American experience through different eras, of course.
Oh, definitely.
Like Take the Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. We're thrown right into the jazz age. It captures the allure and the ultimate emptiness of the American dream, all through the eyes of this mysterious Jay Gatsby and his pursuit of wealth and a lost love.
What's really insightful about Gatsby, I think, is that sense of disillusionment that runs beneath all the glamour and the parties.
Oh, yeah.
The novel looks critically at social class, at how fluid or not American identity really is, and the idea that the past is ultimately unattainable. It's a critique of some really fundamental American ideals.
It is. And then, for a completely different view of the American experience, we have Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath. Here, it's the brutal realities of the Great Depression. Poverty, displacement, the struggle for survival.
Hmm.
But it also shows the incredible resilience of people,
Mm.
the power of human connection,
Yeah.
even in the face of, you know, immense hardship.
Absolutely. And those two books together create such a powerful contrast, don't they?
They do. The opulent world of Gatsby versus the Dust Bowl desperation of the Joad family. It's striking, both dealing with these core American ideals, but their lived experiences are worlds apart.
Exactly. And then you have The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain.
Oh, yes.
Through Huck's journey down the Mississippi, it gives us this satirical and often uncomfortable look at ideas of freedom, morality, and the deeply ingrained racism of 19th century America. I mean, the fact that this book is still taught and discussed says a lot about its power.
Yeah, Twain's work, even though it's funny, doesn't shy away from those tough truths about American history.
Right.
It makes you think about those contradictions and the complexities of individual conscience within a flawed system.
It really does. And it makes you wonder, what does it mean that all these different American stories are on Dr. Rethard's list? What does that tell us about the ongoing conversation in English literature about national identity and how we understand social progress?
It's a great question. It highlights how literature can be a space for self-reflection, for questioning and reevaluating a nation's ideals and how those ideals actually play out in reality.
Exactly.
Now, let's shift gears a bit. This list also features some truly epic journeys, literal and metaphorical, of course.
Oh, definitely.
Herman Melville's Moby Dick, that massive book. It starts as a whaling voyage, but it becomes this profound exploration of obsession, the pursuit of the unattainable, fate, and humanity's relationship with the natural world.
It's an epic in every sense. The length, the scope, its philosophical ambition. Then we have a different kind of epic, The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien.
Right.
This fantasy epic takes us to Middle-earth, a completely imagined world. It's a classic battle of good versus evil, but it also explores courage, sacrifice, and the strength of companionship.
Two very different epics. One based on a sort of heightened reality, with this almost mythical whale at the center, and the other in a completely made-up world. But they both delve into fundamental human drives and conflicts, just on a huge scale.
They do.
Okay, let's head into some darker, more emotionally intense territory now. We've got the Gothic and Romantic traditions represented here.
Okay.
So there's Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre. It's a very atmospheric story full of dramatic events, but it's also about a woman's resilience, her fight for independence, and her search for love on her own terms.
Jane Eyre blends romance and Gothic elements really effectively. It creates this compelling story of personal growth against a backdrop of social challenges. Then we have her sister Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights, which takes the passionate intensity of romanticism to a much darker place. It's all about obsessive love, the cycle of revenge, and the rawness of emotions, all set against the backdrop of the wild Yorkshire moors.
You talk about intense, the sheer emotional power of that book. And we can't forget Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, another major work of Gothic literature.
Oh, of course.
It deals with creation, ethical responsibility, and what it means to be human, all explored through Victor Frankenstein and his monstrous creation.
It's a story that still resonates today.
It does. And this novel continues to spark debate about scientific advancement and the potential consequences.
Exactly. Frankenstein remains relevant because it speaks to those anxieties we have about scientific progress and the ethical considerations that have to come with it. And to round out our exploration of the darker side, we have Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Oh, yes, a classic.
The ultimate horror novel. It digs into the battle between good and evil, the fear of the unknown, and those anxieties about invasion and disruption.
So from the complexities of love and relationships to those terrifying encounters of the supernatural, the 19th century definitely grappled with some pretty big and timeless themes.
It did. And as we move into the 20th century, we see a real shift in literary style and focus with the rise of modernism.
Right.
Virginia Woolf's Mrs. Dalloway, for example.
Yes.
It gives this fragmented interior view of a single day in a woman's life in post-World War I London. It's a completely different approach to narrative, the way it plays with time, memory, and individual consciousness.
Modernism was all about breaking away from those conventional narrative structures, wasn't it?
It was.
Put a lot of emphasis on the inner lives of characters.
Exactly. And it used techniques like stream of consciousness to try and capture the way people think and feel. And then there's James Joyce's Ulysses, which takes us even further.
Ulysses. It's a challenging read, but it's so complex and multi-layered.
It is.
It reimagines a single day in Dublin, drawing all these parallels to Homer's Odyssey.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's The Sound of the Fury by William Faulkner.
Oh, yes.
Multiple narrators, fragmented perspectives, a broken timeline. It delves into the history and the decay of a Southern family.
Another great example of modernism's focus on subjective experience and nonlinear storytelling. These modernist works were so groundbreaking in their time, they challenged what a novel could be and how to represent human experience.
They really did. Now, remember how we talked about 1984 and that whole dystopian theme? Well, the list includes several other dystopian visions that explore those potential dark futures.
It does.
We've talked about Orwell's totalitarian state, but Aldous Huxley's Brave New World offers a different but equally disturbing vision. In this future, society is controlled not through force, but through pleasure and technology. It's about engineered happiness and the suppression of individual freedom in the name of stability.
Right, it's a very different kind of control.
It really is. Orwell was afraid of power imposed through fear and punishment, while Huxley was more concerned with control achieved through pleasure, genetic engineering, and psychological conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale.
Oh,
Such a chilling dystopia that focuses on gender oppression and the struggle for survival and resistance within a totalitarian regime that has stripped women of all autonomy.
and The Handmaid's Tale still resonates because it deals with themes that are so relevant today. Reproductive rights, the treatment of women, the fragility of democratic institutions. It makes you think about the role of dystopian literature as a warning, as a way to make us examine current trends and potential dangers.
It does. And these aren't just like far-fetched stories.
Right.
They reflect real anxieties and power dynamics in our own society. Okay, moving on to another really important part of this list. There are a lot of works that directly explore race, identity, and the impact of colonialism.
Yes, definitely.
Toni Morrison's Beloved is a powerful and haunting story that grapples with the trauma of slavery and its effects across generations.
Beloved is a masterpiece. It confronts the horrors of slavery with such literary power. It forces us to reckon with a painful past.
It does. And then there's Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man. This is another vital perspective on race and identity, exploring the alienation and invisibility experienced by a Black man in a society built on racial prejudice.
And then we have Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart, a foundational work of African literature. It shows the impact of European colonialism on traditional Igbo society in Nigeria, which is such a crucial perspective that's often overlooked.
It is. Achebe's novel is essential for understanding the upheaval caused by colonialism and its lasting effects on post-colonial societies.
It is. And to further explore these themes, there's Colson Whitehead's The Underground Railroad, which reimagines the historical Underground Railroad as an actual, literal subway system.
Right.
It's such a powerful and visceral portrayal of escaping slavery.
And Viethan Nguyen's The Sympathizer gives us a more modern perspective. It looks at war, divided loyalties, and shifting identities through the eyes of a double agent during the Vietnam War.
It highlights how colonialism and conflict can affect individual lives and national stories.
It does. Taken together, these works offer a multifaceted look at identity, especially in the face of oppression. They really enrich our understanding of these different experiences.
They do. Now let's move to a different style of storytelling. Magical realism, which brings more global voices into the mix.
Okay.
Gabriel Garcia Marquez's 100 Years of Solitude, originally written in Spanish, is known worldwide thanks to its English translation. It's a sweeping family saga set in a fictional town in Colombia. It blends realistic events with fantastical elements to explore history, memory, love, and fate.
Marquez's work really showed English-language readers a whole new way of storytelling. It's all about weaving myth and fantasy into everyday life to explore deeper truths.
And Salman Rushdie's Midnight's Children does something similar. It blends personal and national history with magical elements, focusing on children born at the exact moment of India's independence and their connection to the country's past.
It's this amazing tapestry of stories reflecting a nation's journey to independence.
It really is. And Junot Díaz's The Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde adds a more contemporary voice. It explores Dominican-American identity using humor, vulnerability, and some really creative language. It shows the growing diversity of English literature.
Which is fantastic to see. Now, as we get to more recent works on the list, we find novels that deal with contemporary issues and experiment with narrative in really interesting ways.
Oh, definitely.
Cormac McCarthy's The Road paints a really bleak picture of a post-apocalyptic world. It follows a father and son fighting to survive in a destroyed landscape. It's about humanity, love, and perseverance in the face of unimaginable loss.
McCarthy's writing is so raw and powerful. The Road gets at those basic questions about what it means to be human when everything's been taken away. Jennifer Egan's A Visit from the Goon Squad takes a much more fragmented approach.
It does.
It explores time, memory, and music through these interconnected stories that jump around in time and perspective.
It plays with form in such an engaging way.
It does. And Paul Beatty's The Sellout tackles race, identity, and justice in a very satirical, often provocative way.
Right.
It uses humor and discomfort to challenge our assumptions.
It really does. And Richard Powers' The Overstory brings in a very timely environmental perspective.
Oh, yes.
It connects the lives of several characters to the natural world, especially the world of trees.
It makes you reconsider our relationship with the environment.
It does. And Anna Burns' Milkman explores conflict and identity in Northern Ireland during the Troubles. It's told through this unique, often confusing, narrative voice.
Burns' novel captures the atmosphere of that time, the paranoia and the complexities of living in such a tense environment.
It does. And then there's George Saunders' Lincoln in the Bardo.
Ah, yes.
This is a truly experimental and moving story about grief, loss, and the afterlife. It uses a chorus of voices to explore mourning and memory.
It's such a unique and emotionally resonant novel.
It really is. And lastly, in this group of contemporary novels, we have Donna Tartt's The Goldfinch. It's a sprawling story about loss, art, and survival that has really resonated with a lot of people.
Tartt's novel combines such well-developed characters with a gripping story. It explores beauty, obsession, the power of art, and the unpredictable ways our lives can be shaped by chance encounters.
It really does. Now, before we wrap up, let's go back to the Victorian era for a moment. We need to talk about Charles Dickens, Beyond Austen and the Brontes.
Of course.
His Great Expectations is still such a beloved coming-of-age story. It's about ambition, social class, love, and redemption, all through the eyes of Pip.
Dickens was such a master of storytelling, and Great Expectations, with its memorable characters and its exploration of social mobility, remains so relevant.
It does. And then there's Bleak House, which offers a scathing critique of Victorian society, especially its legal system and the impact it had on people.
Dickens wasn't afraid to highlight social injustices, and Bleak House really shows that.
It does. And Thomas Hardy's Tess of the D'Urbervilles is a tragic story about fate, social injustice, and the double standards of Victorian society.
Hardy's novel is so moving. It shows Tess's struggles against those societal pressures.
It is. And finally, to round out our look at Dr. Rothard's list, we have a collection of novels that offer really insightful psychological studies of characters and reflect changing social norms.
Okay.
Henry James, The Portrait of a Lady, dives into personal freedom, the complexity of choices, and the limitations placed on women in a restrictive society.
James was known for his nuanced exploration of character, and The Portrait of a Lady is a perfect example of that.
It is. And Edith Wharton's The Age of Innocence is a subtle but powerful critique of social expectations in Gilded Age New York.
Wharton's writing is so vivid. Her insights into that era are still relevant today.
They are. Then we have E.M. Forster's A Passage to India.
Oh, yes.
It thoughtfully explores the dynamics of colonialism and the challenges of forming genuine human connections across cultural divides.
Forster's novel is still so relevant today for its exploration of prejudice and intercultural relationships, especially in a world shaped by colonialism.
It is. And Kate Chopin's The Awakening was groundbreaking for its time.
It was.
It's an early feminist exploration of a woman's awakening sense of identity, her desires, and her rebellion against societal expectations in the American South.
Chopin was challenging those social and literary norms of her time.
She was. And Zora Neale Hurston's Their Eyes Were Watching God is a beautifully written story that follows a Black woman's journey towards love and self-discovery.
It celebrates Black culture and women's agency.
It does. Alice Walker's The Color Purple offers a moving and ultimately empowering story about resilience and sisterhood in the face of oppression.
Walker's novel is a testament to the strength of the human spirit.
It is.
Yeah.
And finally, we end with Kazuo Ishiguro's The Remains of the Day.
Ah, yes.
It's a quiet but profound meditation on duty, regret, and unspoken love. A more introspective note to end on.
Ishiguro's writing is masterful. It's understated, but emotionally powerful, and it leaves you with so much to think about.
So there you have it. That was a whirlwind tour through 50 of the most popular and prescribed novels in English literature, according to Dr. Rathard's list. And we've only scratched the surface.
Right, there's so much more to explore in each of these books.
Exactly. But it makes you think, doesn't it? These books have endured for decades, even centuries. They're still popular, they're still taught.
Hmm,
What does that tell us about the themes and the questions that resonate with people across time?
that's a great question. And it makes you wonder what a similar list would look like 50 years from now.
Exactly. It
Yeah.
really makes you think. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. We hope you found it valuable and maybe even inspiring.
It was a pleasure.
Until next time.